You're listening to UCW Radio. In your face.
If you try to remember, you will lose. Empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water.
All the fighters that ever set foot on this planet. I'm the only world champion, United States national champion. I'm a two-time national kata champion. I was never beaten kata. Be proud of it.
The Action Martial Arts Power Hour.
All right, welcome to the Action Martial Arts Power Hour with your prestigious host, one of the foremost Wing Chun masters in the United States today. He is known as one of the most respected leaders in the world of martial arts, none other than Master Alan Goldberg. Alan, how you doing, buddy?
I was wondering who you were talking about a minute there. So,
yeah, you like that. Oh, I practiced that for about a good 15 minutes.
That was nice. Thank you. I appreciate it. How you doing, folks? Everyone's good here, and hope everyone's good out there. Had a good Thanksgiving, and I just hope the people did what we asked last year to go to the Red Cross and donate a few dollars and to get these people out of the disaster they're in now. It's getting better every day, but still not enough yet.
Yeah, and we've been mentioning a lot about that on every show, with the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy. And I have some information for our listeners. We do urge our listeners to make a small donation to the American Red Cross, either by texting 90999 to make a $10 donation directly to the Red Cross, or you can call 1-800-435-7669. Many people need your help, and you'll be doing some good for someone. So we want to thank all our listeners in advance for doing their part. Now, Alan, as you know, we have a legend waiting in the wings to come on the Power Hour tonight. He has conquered the mat, the squared circle, and the cage. He stepped into the WWF, now known as the WWE, during the beginning of the Attitude Era, and he is a former UFC Super Fight champion. And he's a certified, without a doubt, UFC legend. Now, without further ado, please welcome us in joining none other than Dan the Beast Severn to the Power Hour. How are you doing, Dan?
I'm doing fantastic.
Excellent.
How are you, Dan?
I'm doing very well. I'm out in warm, beautiful Arizona as we speak.
Well, we're in cold New York. How's that for you?
Yeah. When I left Michigan, I think it was all of 22 degrees there, and then when I arrived in Phoenix, it was like in the 80s. I'm like, what's wrong with this picture, huh?
Yeah, well, I was just out there too in Arizona a couple of weeks ago, and I really enjoyed it. It was a beautiful, beautiful state, and I was out there with John Pellegrini and stuff, and I couldn't ask for more. The weather was great while I was out there.
I keep noticing how my travel tends to coordinate more and more around the winter months. I don't know how that's so coincidental the way it is, but there's an old cliche I've been hearing lately that they say it's easier to shovel sunshine than it is to shovel snow. I don't know about that, though.
Much easier, I think. Anyway.
Yeah.
So, Dan, tell us what brings you out to Arizona anyway.
Well, I'm in Arizona. I actually resided out here for a decade back from 76 to 86, being a student athlete at Arizona State and then also coaching wrestling at Arizona State University. On top of that, just recently, within the last, 3-4 months, I have worked on an arrangement there with Arizona State University and with the Sunkiss Wrestling Program to actually start up a submission grappling class right on campus. So I'm really excited about that. That will be starting up after the first of the year. And just out here just interviewing a few different instructors and just getting the lay of the land, equipment that I'll be needing, and getting things put into place so that we're ready to rock and roll when it's time to go.
Wonderful, wonderful. Hey, listen, sometimes you put your foot into an area there and you find yourself a niche, and that's important. And I think you've done enough in all the industries that you've been in that you've got the reputation and you have the fortitude that people would want you to be there. So I do wish you luck, and I think you'll be very successful with it.
Well, I think I'm really looking forward to getting that going, and eventually it will just lead to doing some mixed martial arts events in the state of Arizona as well. I've had my own mixed martial arts company going since '98, and it's just way of branching between Michigan and Arizona, and then probably eventually again out in either Virginia or West Virginia doing it, so that I can kind of cover a little bit of the entire United States, that way.
Wonderful. Yeah, I know you were out last weekend or 2 weekends ago. You were out. You did that show with the Global Proving Ground. I heard that turned out very well. I spoke to Ron Van Cleef today, and he was telling me it turned out to be a great show. So I had a lot of success.
I've been to Branson. Yeah, it was held in Branson, Missouri. I've been in the state of Missouri, quite a few different areas. I'd never been to Branson before. It kind of reminds me of what Las Vegas probably looked like somewhere in towards that city, probably about mid to 50s or something like that. Beautiful area.
Really? Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I know. I spoke to, as a matter of fact, this year that James came on with the Global Proving Ground to do a sponsorship at our event this year, and they're going to be doing a casting call. So I said, well, we already got Dan there already, so, and next thing you got to bring Master Van Cleef in, so they made arrangements, and Master Van Cleef is going to be joining us this year also. And a lot of good surprises.
Oh, he's coming down?
Yeah. Mr.
Nice.
Cleef is going to be flying in from Hawaii to spend the weekend with us also.
The first time I ended up meeting Ron was at UFC number 4. Here we have the 8 contestants getting ready, sitting up at a press conference, and Ron and I happened to sit beside each other, and we kind of I think what kind of broke the ice there is that we were the only 2 guys that were wearing a sports jacket and a tie, and everyone else were wearing like tank tops and muscle garb and things of this nature. So it was kind of unique that was the first time that we ever met. We've been in correspondence over the years, and then to see Ron physically again 2 weekends ago with the Global Proving Grounds event. So that was really great to see him.
Good. Yeah, Ron's a good guy. I know Ron myself over 40 years, and we've gotten together over the years and done some different things together. Did a show, and actually I did a show with Ron. Believe it or not, I'm dating myself though. But in 1974, I did a thing called Masters in Action that was in the John F. Kennedy Theater down in New York, and I actually Ron had given me a plaque. I mean, it couldn't be more than 4 by 3 inches, the whole plaque. Well, for some reason, I just always held that so close to me, because that was actually my first time I ever did a show on stage. And I still have that hanging in my school even today from 1974. So it's nice little memorabilia, let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
So Dan, we want to know more about you, okay, and what makes Dan Severn tick.
Wow, I feel like I don't know how much time. I know you've got the golden hour here, but the hour of power, but I'm involved in so many different things there, Alan. I've had a very charmed life in so many different ways. End up talking to my father a few years back, and he's like, he goes, boy, he says, how old are you getting to be now? And this probably, I'm probably 47, 48 at the time. And I tell him, and he looks at me, he says, you think you'll ever get a real job? And I had to ponder, and I kind of stared up at the sky, scratched my head for a little bit, put my hand on my chin. I go, Dad, if I work this right, no. He knows I work a lot, but I really enjoy what I do. I mean, literally every day is waking up. I'm like a kid in the candy store because I get to do whatever I want to do, and then that is exciting to me, and I work really hard because I have enjoyed that freedom for so many years that I don't know if I could really handle any other lifestyle anymore.
Yes, it's true. You get so, but Dan, you are also a Triple Crown champion. That gives you that I don't want to say, well, I'll say the leisure to be able to do that. So you're one of the few that can do that, and I think the important thing that people have to know about you, first of all, even though they call you the Beast, you're one of the most gentlest guys I want to know that I met, just by your demeanor and talk and everything you do. So. You're able to carry yourself in different ways in different places, and I think that's what your success really is, besides being a great fighter, So,
well, no, I think you've hit the nail on the head. I mean, it's like I'm almost like an acronym of what my name and all that stands for, and I always tell people it wasn't me that came up with the ring name. It was the legendary football player Jim Brown gave me the ring name, the Beast, for the way that I could turn it on and turn it off. He just really had never seen nothing like that, and even asked me, how do you do that? And I kind of got a little giddy at the time. I'm thinking, golly, Jim Brown was asking me a question like that. I used to watch him when I was in high school. He was playing professional football at that time, was the most punishing running back in the name of the game. But I've always been a very a competitor my entire life, and being able to travel the entire United States, being able to travel whatever country has ever had the sport of wrestling, to have been there, done that. It's been a real education of being around people. I enjoy the teaching aspect. I guess the only thing that kind of saddens me a little bit there is like knowing that each year you get a little bit older, and you know that you lose a little bit more bounce on the step and stuff like this. And I keep thinking, I'm going to fight Father Time, tooth and nail, and just continue doing what I do. Like going to the Action Martial Arts event, to see people again. It might be the only time I see was that one time a year on an annual basis, but it's great to see people. And it's kind of like going out to the Cauliflower Alley Banquet. It's an event that's held primarily for the professional wrestling industry. Mm-hmm. So I like going out there and seeing those individuals because sometimes it might be the last time you see people ever again.
Yeah, true.
That's the truth, especially with the Cauliflower Alley deal. That happens in Vegas, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. I've been to a few myself, and it's pretty good because you can actually meet legends like yourself there. And again, as you said, you may never see them again. So
it's great when you finally get them when they finally get up behind the podium and that microphone's in front of them. Literally, you can see the years melt away, and they are living in the moment of time, and it's fantastic. So it's great that they've got a couple hosts there like Terry Funk, and I'm trying to break on the other gentleman, but they do a great job in case someone gets a little long-winded, that they can comedically help them kind of get closure onto a story, stuff like that. But it is what Alan Goldsberg event is there for the who's who of the martial arts world. That is the who's who of the professional wrestling world.
And I think Alan's trying to bring all worlds together. I don't know.
Well, I'm trying. I like what I do, and it's funny. One of the guys said the other night I was talking on another radio show, and the guy goes, "Oh yeah, I know a couple people don't like you because of the way you act and do things or certain things." I said, "Listen, I'm not in this for a popularity contest, but I will tell you what I am in it for. I'm here to unite the martial arts, and the guys that get in my way are not going to like me because I'm going to tell them right to their face. Excuse the language, but screw up, And
yeah.
I always say, well, I still get 1,200 people to show up every year, so I must be doing something right, to say the least.
Well, I'd say that's just 1,200 people that come to the actual banquet portion. That has nothing to do with how many people come to the actual expo portion on the Saturday there. Between the Friday and the Saturday, how many more people are probably showing up? It's, more and more, I look at it, it's like the health industry. You've got people there, selling their various wares, not just their actual skills that they have, but also various pieces of athletic equipment, things that are being brand new, and that might be the first time that being exposed to the market. You got people that are selling their various vitamins and protein powders, and it literally has become more and more of anything involved in that health industry. And again, the martial arts, that plays a very vital role because it always talks about the mind, the body, and the spirit. So
right. Yeah, and the amazing thing, we this year we just put on something brand new, which Dan, you do have a ticket for that night if you rent a VIP ticket. Louis Negley and I have joined up on Friday night. He's been doing the ROC Ring of Combat in the Tropicana on the third floor in the main showroom. So now we just added on another group of people. So we're looking at thousands upon thousands of more people coming through the front door this year that we didn't have last year even. So
wow.
We try to make it bigger and better every year.
Alan, I thought you were going to talk about the Friday night thing.
Well, let me give the audience a little.
That's a funny story with Dan and the Friday night cheese thing.
Yeah, I was just going to bring that up. audience, I got to tell the people that how Dan is. Dan, I hire private security at my event. And the reason why I hire private security is because I don't want people showing up and say, well, I'm a friend of Alan Goldberg's, let me in. Because they'll just say to them, you don't have a ticket, you're not coming in. And they turn down everyone. So happened, I, of course, told Dan to show up that night. I wasn't up there yet. I was taking care of some other business. Dan shows up at the wine and cheese party, and they wouldn't let him in.
They did exactly what you said to do, and I'm thinking, I didn't want whatsoever. I just like, okay.
And it's funny because when someone said, well, Dan was just here, and they wouldn't let him in, he walked away. I ran through that hotel. I checked every place I could that I thought maybe Dan would be looking for him, because I felt so bad. But, I mean, truthfully, Dan has been with me from the beginning. He's been 13 years ago when I first started, and Dan was by my side. And, you know, I also took Dan like one of my good luck charms because he started it with me. So I felt so terrible, but this because I went for something to eat. It didn't matter. But this year, Dan, you know, don't worry, you got a ticket. You don't have to worry about it.
All right, you heard it live.
I guarantee you that went down. They probably said, "Do you have a ticket?" He said, "No." They said, "You can't come in." He said, "Okay," and he walked away. Right, Dan? I know what you did.
Yeah, well, I'm easy going like that. It's kind of like I found myself something to entertain myself, I'm sure.
Oh my God!
But you know something good stuff. Well, you know, we are expanding that party this year, and we're also putting a stage up inside in the wine and cheese room because we're doing some announcements, some other little awards and other things. So even that has cultivated over the last couple of years to become even something more and bigger than I started originally, which I just thought originally we'd just do a little get-together. But now I'm able to touch the audience a little different and have my celebrities and the people we bring in to be able to touch the audience and be with people in a different manner. And it's worked out well. So this year we plan on having a good time. But what we're doing this year, we're starting our party at 5:30 and ending at 8 because Louis Neglia starts 8:30. He starts his Ring of Combat. So we're going to just, you know, whoever bought tickets or whoever has VIP tickets are just going to come out and go right into the fights, which is one floor down. So it's going to be a wild weekend there. There's going to be a lot of stuff going on. And it should be fun. But something that I was really happy that I recently saw, and you know, me and my son, and people know me, we're very close, me and my son. And over the last couple of years, Dan says, "Alan, you mind if I bring my son with me?" And he had brought two of his sons over the last couple of years. Yeah. And I said, "Yeah." And his sons, they never saw anything like that. And when they saw the way their father was treated in that mannerism, to me that was great. I mean, that made my heart warm. And I know after the weekend was over, I know they both had smiles on their face.
Well, yeah, well, it's the same way for me. Just you know, I like them to see different things, and it's a world that they know about. They know that Dad's been involved with, but that they, other than simply coming out to my training facility and seeing stuff that involve either mixed martial arts or amateur wrestling, they've really not been exposed to the martial arts all that much. So I really like them coming out there and seeing it because it is something that, you know, MMA just does not have. It doesn't have, does not teach a lot of the traditional values of honor and respect, and that's what I really love about the traditional arts. I think that's one part that if you can somehow infuse that into the mixed martial arts, you might have, I think it's a more viable product.
I agree.
Well,
I agree.
Well, Dan, can I ask you something? You know, you when you were a collegiate wrestler, you wrestled all over the world. You've done amazing things. You're a multi-time champion. Now, how is that transition from doing that? How did you get involved in the UFC in the early days when Semaphore Entertainment owned it? That was pre-Dana White for the listeners out there.
Yes, exactly. The listeners, I was brought on because a lot of them may not know exactly who I am because they're used to hearing all the more John Bone Jones and Rampage Jackson and Tito Ortiz. They're used to a little bit more current type of names, whereas, you know, and it's known as mixed martial arts now, whereas, you know, when I first got involved with it back in '94, UFC number 4, it was known as No Holds Barred, just to help the listeners. The product that they watch today, mixed martial arts, has approximately 37 rules. Part of those 37 rules are there are weight classes, there are time periods, the athletes wear gloves, and they fight one opponent in a given evening, whereas back in the No Holds Barred era, there were no weight classes. They only had two rules that they had to, that were in violation. Those being, you were not allowed to bite your opponent, and you were not allowed to stick fingers in their eye socket. So no eye gouging. Those were the only two rules. And as I stated, no weight classes, no time periods, bare-knuckled action, no gloves. And you had, as an 8-man tournament, you had to face and defeat 3 opponents in a less than 2-hour pay-per-view. And like Alan was saying, that I'm the only Triple Crown champion from that time era, and since now it's illegal to do, I'm it. So.
Yep. And the funny thing about it, I had met Dan right after his first fight. If you remember, we met down in the Soldiership Council in it was in New Jersey at the time. And when I met Dan, he was a little set back because Dan was never around that base of traditional martial arts, but he fell right into it because what he did in that ring, he did real martial arts. It wasn't the mixed martial arts as we see today. So, from the minute I met him, we kind of just became friends because I was working the event, and I was told, take care of this guy. He just won the UFC. I said, all right, not a problem.
Well, and I need to say, Dan, I need to say something. You were talking about the listeners being more aware of the current names like Tito and so on and so forth. You are a Hall of Famer. Your name is timeless as it comes, to pass at UFC. There's no current, there's no past. Dan Severn is going to be, forever linked to the UFC. So I think the listeners do know that. So but you're humble, and I dig that about you.
Well, no, I've always been that way my entire life. I always say that your merit should more or less speak for yourself. You don't have to sit up there and regale people and what you do. It's just the way that you carry yourself, the way that you just speak to people. Even in my own training facility, half the times I don't know if I'm running a training facility or if I'm actually running a halfway house for young men. Teach them how to shake hands, firm handshakes, how to look people in the eye, how to speak properly, and just common courtesies that are so lacking nowadays with our young people. And again, those are still all the same values that you see in almost every traditional martial arts facility. So that's what I really like about that. One of the first times I think I went to one of Alan's events, I really felt like, and I made the comment that I feel like I've really come home in the family type of environment that I wish to be around.
Well, I appreciate that.
Well, that type of atmosphere you have there, Alan, and that's been from day one. And Dan, in UFC, you face such greats as Royce Gracie, Mark Coleman, Don Fry. The list goes on and on. And WWF, WWE, you face everyone from Owen Hart to The Rock and so on and so forth. Was that transition from UFC to getting into the squared circle, was that a difficult thing for you?
No, actually, in fact, just to back up just a little bit more before that, because a lot of people, that's what they think was a natural progression, but I was a professional wrestler as of the 92 Olympics. Mm-hmm. I first started doing professional wrestling at that time, virtual unknown. I used my real name. I used my real amateur wrestling credentials, and I happened to be very, very young in my career. And a gentleman from Nashville, Tennessee, happened to be on one of the cards, and he asked me if that was legit, and I said, yes, it was. And he said, you ought to be over in Japan doing this thing called shoot fighting or shoot wrestling. I had never heard of it before. I gave him a business card, gave him an athletic resume. 3 days later, I get a phone call. 10 days later, I go down to Nashville, Tennessee for a tryout. 30 days later, I'm in Tokyo, Japan, in front of a 12,000-seat sellout. Did not have a clue as to what I was doing. All I knew was my Asian opponent kicked me half a dozen times, really, really hard. I grabbed him and flinging him all over the place, dismantling him in the process, much to the crowd's cheering and stuff like this. And the Japanese interpreter, he's like, Dan Severn, you will become a superstar in Japan. And I'm like, well, I don't know about that superstar thing, but I'm going to be protecting myself at all costs here. So
they love things like that in Japan.
And UFC came after that.
Okay, so you were a pro wrestler. You just came back home.
Yeah. Well, we have a couple, guests coming on, which are co-sponsors of the event. She has a show actually that come on as a co-host, and we have one guy, and we call him Mr. Wikipedia, but I don't. I really call him Kempo Joe is his real name. And when he comes on, Dan, I just have to sit down because he's going to tell you things about yourself that you forgot already. This guy's a walking encyclopedia of anyone that we get on the show. So we'll be on a little while. And I have another gentleman coming you know very well, Aaron Richmond, the president of the MMA Fight Council. And he's coming on. He's going to be working with us on doing some of the MMA coverage and things like that. We originally started to do that when we first started the show, but it didn't fall into place because of one of the things we originally started the show of, Dan, was that I always had a pet peeve about these guys that call themselves a doctor of martial arts and PhDs in martial arts. So we kind of went after them at the very beginning of our show, and, it took a little time up, but it also took some time to get these guys to realize that we were, I don't want to say the word right, because it's not, we weren't in a battle. We were just trying to make people aware of what the legitimate aspects are of the martial arts. And I have to say, to this day, most of the guys we know did take that off their resumes as being doctors of Oriental philosophy, things like that. So we're back to basics to some point. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
there was only one person that called in to even defend that or even, confront it, if you remember that.
Yeah, and you know something? And we actually went off and I proved him off the air. He didn't like it. That whatever he was saying was fraudulent. It wasn't a real doctor's degree. But he kept saying, oh, yeah, but it's from a martial art organization. Well, let's not get into this whole conversation again, but it's not legitimate within the standards of the highest board of education. That's all I'll say. And most people finally realize it at this point. So we did a good job, Lou. And you and I both, and a couple other people that were on board with that, we kind of straightened a lot of that out at our first earlier shows about maybe 12 to 15 shows back. But now we're honored we're getting some great guests on, such as Dan, and we've had Frank Shamrock, and we had Don Wilson, Cynthia Rothrock. So we're getting some great guests on every show now, and people are appreciating what we're putting together for them. So
I want to get that nice part about being at the event is you get the opportunity of chatting with people and a lot of informal type of settings. That Saturday there's all types of little seminars, clinics of that are taking place, and then you have all the various celebrities, or they're taking pictures, signing autographs, or they might be like myself. I tend to mill about just to see. I'm there to see what new items are being brought forth in the industries, because I'm always, when you run your own companies and stuff like this and your own training facilities, you're always looking for something new and improved to kind of help get the same message across, but might be just a little different way of delivering that.
I think also you walk around to see who you can rib, but that's just my opinion.
Well, I probably to a certain degree,
Now, Dan, this is a word. I really don't like using this word. Because you evolve from one stage to the other as a human being. But a lot of people, they talk about retirement from professional fighting. Now, where are you in that realm right now? Because you've done everything that I believe that any pro wrestler or fighter can do. Where do you go now? What are you going to do?
Right now, I sent out a number of emails to all the various promoters and promotions I had in my database as of December 2011, letting all the various promoters know that if they were ever think about utilizing my skills, that it better occur somewhere in the course of 2012, because I plan on being retired as of January 2013. Now, I have, out of that, I think I've only had either one or two matches that have materialized this year. I had half a dozen promoters jump on it right away, and just nothing seemed like it really materialized. I have been contemplating retirement for about the last, I'd say, 4, 5, 6 years. And
I've heard that.
Yeah, but I was looking for that one last big hurrah to, set as your goal, train hard for, and then, let that be it. Well, that last big hurrah never really took place. And so it's kind of like, well, now I just have to become to grips with myself and just realize that, well, what's done is done. And so I tell people that I I plan on being retired from mixed martial arts competition as of January. I said, but what the clause knowing that if one of three individuals, being a Mark Coleman, a Ken Shamrock, or a Hoist Gracie, if one of those three matches were to come up, or the fourth case would be that the money was so ridiculous, that would be the only fourth clause that I would ever put in. So I always say I'm going to retire much the way that a professional wrestler retires, and that is until the money sounds just too good to be true, then I'll come back out of retirement. But for all intents and purposes, I will be finishing my mixed martial arts career this year, and I'm looking that in the course of 2013 of actually putting my professional wrestling career to an end in the following year.
Okay.
Oh,
all right.
Yeah. So
we'll have something to celebrate in January. So
January will be a great month for me then.
I think it's going to be. I think 2013 is going to bring a lot of great things to you, Dan. And that's why, with the word retirement, I don't like using it because you're evolving, because you're still involved in the industry. You're still doing a lot of great things.
I've always been involved in the industry. It's working with the Global Proving Grounds is just one of the companies, and they're trying to do things on an international type basis. Working also with the World Cup of Mixed Martial Arts. They're also doing things on an international basis there. And both of them, what I like is the fact that both of these companies are trying to infuse the more traditional martial arts back into the mixed martial arts world, and I'm all about that. And with one company, I'm acting as their athletic commissioner. With the other company, it's just all types of anything from play-by-play, color commentating to just help them write the rules and regulations and things of that nature. And on top of that, still just doing my own thing of traveling to and fro and still doing the workshops and seminars. I still enjoy that a great deal.
Yeah, there were a couple of good fights that night at the World Cup. We went up there. I was there with you. And there were a couple of good fights. There. Some heavy-duty guys in there fighting. So.
Yeah, I've been in contact with them, and I know that come January, that's when they're going to be making some new announcements at that point in time. And I'm hoping to be on board right along there with them.
Yes, excellent.
Well, that's awesome stuff. And I think that, as I said, you're going to keep giving till you can't give anymore. I can see you 100 still doing this, and I'd still be afraid of you.
Yeah, okay, I took the ring name The Beast. Basically, has a lot of negative connotations. So basically, I'm a very positive individual. The word "the" stands for Dan Severn. I'm a teacher, humanitarian, and I'm an educator. My message to my message to young people is beast. To believe in yourself, to educate yourself, to adjust your everyday attitude, to study hard, and then to teach others. So in the end, you do give it away. You give all that knowledge away so that you make the world a better place.
And there you have it. I can't find. I don't know of any other better way to go to break, Alan, with the great words from Dan the Beast Severn. All right, Dan, we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be back on the Action Martial Arts Power Hour with Master Alan Goldberg and UFC legend, pro wrestling legend, Dan the Beast Severn. And we're going to bring on Wikipedia Joe. And Alan, don't care. I'm going to keep calling him Wikipedia Joe because he has way too much information for us. All right, so we'll be right back.
You're listening to UCW Radio, in your face.
Welcome back, my friends, to the show that never ends. So glad you could attend. Come inside, come inside.
Action Martial Art Magazine, January 25th, 26th, Hall of Fame, United City Tropicana Hotel. Be there, bigger, better than ever. The ultimate martial art event, biggest martial event in the world. Tropicana Hotel. If you want to contact me, 718-856-8070, or go to our website, actionmagstore.com.
You're listening to UCW Radio, in your face.
All right, welcome back to the Action Martial Arts Power Hour with your host, the man that does it all in martial arts, Alan Goldberg, and of course our special guest, UFC legend, pro wrestling legend Dan Severn. Guys, welcome back to the show. We're going to be joined by your co-host for the next segment, Wikipedia Joe. So, Joe, welcome to the Power Hour.
Good evening, gentlemen. How are you doing tonight?
Hey, Joe, how are you, buddy? How are you?
Doing very well. I don't know if you folks are getting the snow out your way. We're dealing with this here in Massachusetts, so I don't know if it's out that way, either in cold water or they're out there in New York. How are you guys doing with the snow?
We're all right. Right now, we're all right. We don't know what they said it's going to be a little heavier, but listen, we'll get through it. So
I'm going to go hang out with Dan in Arizona.
Let me make the introduction
exactly.
first.
Yeah, I actually lived in Monroe, Michigan, in the Lower Peninsula for a little while, studying to be an African missionary. So I definitely can relate to the cold weather in Michigan.
Yeah, it's just cold in Michigan right now. In the Upper Peninsula, I think they've got a little bit of snow in the Upper Peninsula, but in the lower, it's just in the very northern part of the Lower Peninsula, and they got a little bit of a dusting right there. Nothing serious until give it about another 30 days. Then we'll start getting some more serious snow.
Definitely. Yeah, it was the first place I ever went on the highways, and all the highways were torn up because of the snow plows. I was like, wow, okay, this is snow. Well, actually, I wanted to say, first of all, Mr. Severn, we actually do know each other. We know each other through a mutual acquaintance, one of my old students, Tim Gillette from Fall River, Massachusetts.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, we had Tim. Matter of fact, Tim had brought you in the past for seminars, and you've met him through different MMA events and whatnot. And that's how I first got to meet you. You did a seminar for him way back in the day, and you actually did on the same weekend a pro wrestling card for another friend of mine's wrestling promoter, Joe Eugenio, back in the day.
Wow,
small world.
Yes, it is. Well, Joe, it's good to talk to you once again after all these years.
Well, I've got a couple questions for you, and just to educate our general public and the listeners of the show. Well, the first thing I wanted to ask you, I was looking through your resume and all your past in career, and the first thing that came to interest in your early career, I saw about lifting with the amateur wrestling with the Sun-Kissed Kids, and that you were the first Sun-Kissed Kid. Who were the Sun-Kissed Kids?
It is it's the number one amateur wrestling club in the world today. You know, at the time, it was a startup organization back in 1976. I ended up, going on recruiting trips all around the United States, and I happened to be out in Arizona at one of the times right there, and I happened to be having lunch with the head coach, one of the former alumnus, and myself, and the head coach excused himself to go make a few phone calls because the cell phone did not exist at the time. Well, it did, but it was not very fashionable to have that big walkie-talkie type of device. And the alumnus said, I heard that you're looking for the best of both worlds, because I made it. There's no secret that I was going to sign with a program that had a good international program, freestyle and our Greco-Roman, along with their collegiate, because I always felt I was a better international wrestler than I was as our folk style, what we do here in the United States. Mm-hmm. And the alumnus said, well, you signed with Arizona State, and that will come to pass. And sure enough, 1976, the Sun-Kissed Kids program was started, and you're talking to the very first Sun-Kissed Kid.
Excellent. Now, the next question I had in regards to that, in relationship to your early UFC career, you have the distinction of being the first MMA fighter to ever utilize the suplex. And when you started working with that, in relationship to that, what made you use the suplex? Why did the belly to back suplex? Why was it that particular technique that you became noted for?
No, I don't know. I had so many people say, "What was going through your mind?" I said, "Well," I said, other than him trying to put his elbow or his fist through my mind, I said I was trying to stay out of harm's way.
Well, Joe, the truth of the matter is he hurt people with that suplex. That's why he used it.
Oh, it was when I did it. So many people were horrified because they had never seen anyone who probably lifted up another man like that and just flung him over his head. But to anyone in the say the amateur wrestling world, freestyle or Greco-Roman, your two international styles, they're well versed. They exhilarated. I mean, they thought that was fantastic, and the professional wrestling world, they totally embraced me because that's a big killer. Well, at one point, that used to be a big killer finishing technique that was utilized by many professional wrestlers. So, the professional wrestling community really loved the fact that I pulled off a suplex.
Well, I tell you, I saw one fight that I remember Dan did. I don't remember the gentleman before. It was a tall, thin kid, a little taller than Dan. And Dan grabbed this guy, and he suplexed the guy, I think it was 4 times in a row. And this guy's body went limp. And to me, that was one of the greatest fights I've ever seen in UFC. Do you remember that fight, Dan?
Well, that was my very first one. That's where people, they didn't know who I was because I didn't say anything. They didn't really didn't talk much about my background. I was trying to go out there and I ate a lot of elbows in that match against Anthony Macias. Yeah. And then once, I ended up getting back around him, I started flinging him. And when he stood back up, it's like he landed the second and third time harder and with more force and impact. So much force and impact that his own knee, as I folded his body in half, his own knee came up and struck his own head with his own knee and split his own head open. That's how much force he was making impact with the surface. But, in that mixed martial arts world or no-holds-barred world, they had never seen that technique.
Amazing.
But, when I walked out in my very first mixed martial or no-holds-barred event, I only trained for 5 days, an hour and a half a day, and I never trained a single strike. I never trained a single submission. I just had I was inside of a professional wrestling ring with the instructor of professional wrestling and 2 other professional wrestling proteges, and they had one old pair of boxing gloves, and the name of the game was Punch and Kick at Dan, and I don't like being punched and kicked at, so I stayed out of range and would either close the distance before they got any real mustard on it, and that was my training camp.
Now, during your UFC career, after UFC 4, again, you mentioned earlier about Cauliflower Alley, and I was very familiar with Cauliflower Alley. Again, I worked in the professional wrestling industry for 14 years, and actually one of my martial arts instructors, a gentleman by the name of David German, the founder of TIE, Transition Action Incorporated, he was the martial arts advisor for Cauliflower Alley for many years. And we were talking about the old hookers and shooters in those days. Yes. Luthez, Carl Gotch, Stu Hart. After UFC 4, did you go to any of these individuals to look at that particular aspect? Because it was no holds barred after all.
No, exactly. Well, matter of fact, Luthez, I was given my own National Wrestling Alliance heavyweight title belt. Was presented to me by Luthez himself. He was the president of the Cauliflower Alley banquet. And I did not know that. I mean, I was simply told by a few people, you really need to be there, that, they were actually saying that Lou was going to be stepped down as president. And I thought a great deal of Lou, so I was there. Well, and when he got up there, he started talking about this presentation that they were going to give to the next person. But he used the line that says, I've known a lot of wrestlers in my day, but I've known very few wrestlers, and even fewer yet hookers and shooters. And that's where, again, the listening audience, they had never heard these terms before. It was a term given to athletes of true ability, because that's where the professional ranks, professional wrestlers, they merged out of the carnival type ranks. So the champion wearing the belt, he actually had true ability. So when that announcer would be in the ring there with the champ, saying that whatever man, woman, or child that could last 5 minutes with the champ would get $10,000. That was a legit offer that was being presented but knowing that whoever climbed through those ropes, that champ was going to put down hard and fast. And so now when old Billy Bob goes back up into the crowd, all bloody, battered, and bruised, you know, the people would think it had to be legit because look what happened to one of their own. And that was what the premise of profession was founded on.
Mm.
Excellent. You know, we always talk about that analogy, that country boy that lifts tractors and cows in his spare time when he's out in the field, and that's who they had to deal with. And you know what?
Joe, you're talking to one there right now. So you're talking to the guy that slop pigs and milk cows and shoveled more maneuvered than I probably want to even admit to.
There you go. Well, you know, while we're on the topic, since we're talking about the old hookers and shooters of old times, again, you were involved in the World Wrestling Federation, and you did a storyline for a while with Owen Hart. Now, Did you know Owen through Stu Hart previously, or did you meet him first in the WWF? Now the WWE.
Yeah, that's the first time I met him was there, and I got to know Owen more and more as time passed on, and he actually said that told me that he had actually went to the Canadian. I've been to the Canadian Cup wrestling event, amateur freestyle wrestling event, several times, and it was held up in Ontario. And he actually came over and watched because they actually have a legit. Owen and the family had a legit background in amateur wrestling as well, freestyle wrestling and that. So the thing that with Owen, after I got a chance to get to know him a little bit more, was I could do certain things in matches that I could not do with a normal professional wrestler. But because Owen had that amateur background as well, we could do some ground things. We could go out there and do some things on the feet that, you know, most professional wrestlers would not be versed with.
Now, again, you know, sadly, unfortunate with his tragic passing. You know, again, there's another individual that you worked with that's no longer with us. In 1995, you mentioned about the National Wrestling Alliance. You had earned your first tenure as the champion by defeating Chris Candido. And I was wondering what it was like to work with him as a wrestler. I didn't know if you had worked a series of matches or you had been brought in as a spoiler for that match. Can you give us a little background about that time?
That was kind of brought together, Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Jim Cornette was overseeing that, and it was, I think, this quick collaboration between Dennis Carluzzo and Jim Cornette.
And Dennis, we lost Dennis too.
Yes.
As well, yeah.
I was more there as a spectator to the event, and they had, you know, Chris, I forget who he was wrestling at the time, but it was one of those matches where, you know, the loser eats dog food. Well, I think Chris lost the match. In the process of him trying to be fed this dog food, you know, gets knocked over and basically lands in my lap. And so it basically leads to this impromptu match.
Oh, wow.
And that's kind of how it actually came about. And that he was willing to put his strap on the line, you know, against, you know, a guy that, you know, that didn't know much about professional wrestling.
Sure. Okay. Now, just one last. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, please.
No, I was going to say just one other question. Then we have Aaron Richmond of the MMA Fight Council on hold. So just ask Dan what you need to ask, and then we'll bring on Aaron.
Certainly. I always have what I call a questionable question, meaning I haven't really found out the answer to it. I've heard it in the past, and sometimes I'll ask a person, and they'll say, yes, it happened. Other times they'll say, I have no idea what you're talking about. So on this one, in the UFC, there were individuals from the George Dillman camp with Kyushu Jutsu that had claimed that you had studied some of the Kyushu Jutsu technique, and there's one particular fight in which you execute this heel palm to the front of the person's forehead and really stun them. And everyone was saying from that camp, oh, he had learned this technique, etc. Is there any truth to that story?
Well, no, I legitimately had met George on several different occasions. A buddy of mine out of Detroit, Eric Heberstreit, actually introduced me originally to George. I actually still have the actual rocks, and I designed a wooden thing that kind of help hold steady the metal bowl that these rocks were in to actually work on iron palm techniques. I had the motion, so I literally was, I guess, I don't know, making my hands some more callous and stuff like this, doing palm, but I also worked the back of my hand because I worked the actual palm strikes, but then I came back with backhands and things of that nature. And even in some of my matches where some people were, or just to be throwing open palms, I would swing across with a palm shot and then come back across with a backhand. And because my first exposure in Japan, it was bare knuckled. You were allowed to kick the entire body. You were allowed to punch the entire body, but to the face, it had to be all open palm. And that's how I really learned that I needed to throw a good open palm. But then it was shortly after that being immersed more and more into the martial arts world that I came across a few other individuals, but I know also, of course, George Dillman there as well. And that's where legitimately I did get exposed to some iron palm techniques, and I did incorporate them into my arsenal.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate taking the time. And last but not least, that UWF story, the Japanese promotion, Bart Vale tells a similar story, and I think that's a thing that they always pull on. They don't tell them until they put him in the ring to see how they'll do. And I thank you for sharing that story, and thank you for taking time to talk to me.
No,
Master Rebello, thank you. I appreciate being on as usual. Bring us a lot of information.
Yeah, stay with us, Joe. Don't leave. We just have to bring Aaron on so we can have the MMA moment. So,
Dan is gonna sneak off the air also because he had other things he had to do. So let me just say my goodbyes to Dan, and we'll speak during the week anyway. And if you want to, whatever you want to hang up, Dan, just do what you got to do. We're going to say our goodbyes to you now. And thanks for being on the show. I really appreciate it. It's been wonderful.
No, Jeff, I had a lot of fun. I just have got a few prior commitments there, so let's do this again before the actual martial arts weekend takes place, and we'll get a chance to talk on a few other areas.
Wonderful.
We'll be doing a live show there too, so it's going to be a lot of fun, definitely. But Dan, you're definitely one of the most humble people that are out there in the world of martial arts or pro wrestling, for that matter. And I appreciate you. I do that.
Let me tell you the story about how I've stayed humble all these years. The very first national title I ever won was back in '72. Here I am, I think either 13 or 14 years of age. I come back to the farm. I've got this nice, was a trophy or plaque, I'm not sure it was him, showed it to my father, kind of like a little bandy rooster, mouth, chest was puffing out, stuff like this. Look at his dad, son won a national title, and he's like, well, that's great there, son. He goes, but we've got some pig pens that still need to be cleaned out. And I'm like, but Dad, I'm like, I start head on down, like, oh, okay. And I'm out there, I'm shoveling manure. And my father comes out to me, puts his hand on my shoulder. He goes, son, I do expect an extra special job out of you. You are our national champion. And so it's kind of like I have never that was burned into my memory, and I will tell that story till I draw my last breath. There, I said my father had a way about keeping me rather humble.
There you go.
That's awesome.
But gentlemen, I appreciate the time we've had to share here, and I look forward to our next great adventure.
All right, buddy. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it, Dan.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Dan. Enjoy.
Thank you.
All right. So now we had a legend, Dan Severn, on the show, and Alan, you have to agree, he's one of the most humble guys out there in MMA, martial arts, or even in pro wrestling that I've come across.
I've been fortunate to break bread with Dan many, many times over the last, say, 15 years, 20 years. And I tell you, every time we get together, he just makes me laugh. He's just got a sense of humor that you look at him, you don't expect it to be there. But he is one of a kind, definitely he is.
Yeah, and hopefully his son builds up. His son David. I know he was doing some wrestling and stuff. And when we spoke to him, and what was it, in Ohio? When I was talking to him, and Dan said, I don't know, maybe my son may go down that road. I said, well, let's see what happens. If so, then you'll have a big legacy there. So with that said, let's bring on from the MMA Fight Council. He's been on hold for a little bit. Welcome, Aaron Richmond.
Hello. Lou, thanks for having me. Hi, Alan. How are you?
Aaron, how are you, buddy? Good. You know, we asked you to come on a while ago, and we just were able to arrange it this week. And you listen, when it comes to the MMA world, who's better to know the things except for the president of the MMA Fight Council? So we want to give you a few minutes, say a few words, talk about what's going on in the industry and what you feel is fights you've seen, so on and so forth.
Absolutely. And if I may, though, I just can't not say something about Dan because I'm blown away. Loving MMA as I do, in 2012, I'm blown away by Dan Severn. And, you know, I can barely remember my 3 kids' names, and he's got 127 fights, and it seems like no matter which one you ask him about, he remembers every detail about it. He's fought in almost a dozen countries. I just can't believe every time I get a chance to listen to him, it really, I'm just that much more impressed than I was the last time.
You know what I find? I mean, just to interject something like that, I find the very technical fighters that are out there, such as the guy, rest his soul, Joe Louis, and a guy like Dan Severn, their intelligence level is more than you expect. These guys are special where they are because it's not just how they know how to fight, it's about their intelligence. So, you know, I don't expect anything less when you speak to a guy like this, but you don't expect it as the normal people until you speak to them, see it. So
right. You're absolutely right. So, and by the way, just a side note, Lou, I believe that his son, David, has been a 2-time state wrestling champion so far.
That I remember, yeah.
Pretty, wonderful. You know, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, they say.
No, not at all. All right, my friend, do your magic.
Yeah, so MMA today, I mean, let's see, the most recent UFC was back on the 17th. Hopefully you got to catch it or hear about it, but if not, it was huge. It was the return of George St. Pierre after, almost a year, maybe a year and a half out due to an injury. He came back and fought Carlos Condit, and he was taken to a decision, but it was a unanimous decision in his favor. So he came back, a little bit of ring rust, as he talked about afterwards, but the pay-per-view champion king, as Dana White likes to call him. You know, he really turned it on and did what he needed to do against a very worthy opponent, by the way. And then in that same UFC, Johnny Hendricks, who is really a friend of the MMA Fight Council. He's just a great guy. I've known him since he was starting out in the UFC. He defeated Martin Kampmann, which basically put him, giving him the next shot at the 170-pound, the welterweight title in the UFC. So that was great. In fact, he had a 46-second knockout is what he did against Martin Kampmann. Very impressive. So he's the future perhaps, but. And then, of course, the news coming out of UFC 154 is, will George St. Pierre be fighting Anderson Silva in a super fight? There's rumors of the Dallas Cowboys Stadium sometime next year. It remains to be seen, but it seems to be, something that a lot of the fans are hoping to see. And very torn, in fact, about who would win, such a fight. So that was the most recent UFC. We do have also Bellator just took place the night before that, the 16th of November was the last Bellator. And a guy down in your neck of the woods, Rich Clemente, who's been fighting for a long time, unfortunately lost that night and retired. So a little regional tri-state news there. To an up-and-coming guy, Marcin Held. Bellator is, strong as always. Their next show coming up is pretty exciting. It's coming up this coming Friday, and it has again, a guy from your neck of the woods, Lyman Good from Tiger Schulman's schools, fighting for the welterweight tournament championship against Andrei Koreshkov, and so that's coming up this Friday. It is televised. For anybody that's in Michigan, it's at Mount Pleasant, Michigan, at Soaring Eagle Casino. He's a tough guy. He was their champion originally at that weight, and lost it, but he's right on the verge of winning it back. So that's what's happening with Bellator. And by the way, the Bellator after that, let me just check the schedule here. I think it's the one right after that is going to be in Atlantic City.
Okay.
So Yeah. So coming up shortly, December 7th, actually, Bellator 83. The following one will be in Atlantic City for anybody that's looking for some good fights down there.
Great.
So that's some of the the big fight news as far as what just took place. What's coming up? The next UFC is UFC on Fox, December 8th, and that's going to be a great night of fights with Benson Henderson fighting Nick Diaz, both tough guys. That's in Seattle, Washington. Some other good fights on that card. BJ Penn's coming back out of his supposed retirement to fight Rory McDonald that night. Some good stuff going on there. Again, that's Seattle. Let's see. What else might be of interest? I will tell you, for anyone that's not familiar, on our website, the MMAFightCouncil.com, we have an events page. And even just for the rest of this year, we've got about 25 or 30 more events listed from around the world. So if you're looking to find out what might be happening in your part of the world, we've got events in Bulgaria and India and Poland and, of course, mostly in the U.S.
Just a little thing to give your credentials about what you're doing also with the MMA Fight Council. Can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and what you're doing with that?
Sure. It's an organization.
We want everyone to know who you are. Let's put it that way, too.
Okay. Well, I'm really just a lucky guy, I think, that loves the sport of MMA. Lucky that I know you, Alan, and Lou, and I've been fortunate enough to meet people along the way that care about the sport as well. And so, we have this organization and this website where we try to make a difference in as many ways as we possibly can. Some ways that for people that like to see something, you put their eyes or their hands on it. On our website, we have the world's largest list of MMA promotions, not because there's anything in it for us, but because we want fans to be able to connect with promotions, to be able to support fighters wherever they might be fighting. So there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of promotions listed, literally. If someone wants to count them, be my guest. I have no idea how many we have. And we also have the world's largest list, the collection of MMA sites. There's 400 or 500 sites listed on one of our pages. And again, that's because if you love MMA like we do, and you have an hour or 5 minutes or 3 weeks, you can look through it. You can find stuff you never heard of. So that's some of what we do. There's some other stuff that maybe I can have better prepared to speak about in the future.
Well, let me add on to this, Aaron, because you again, like with Dan, there's a humbleness there. You're a veteran. You've been around the block. And I've seen you in action with the MMA Fight Council. I've seen what you've done, of what you continue to do, and you come up with these creative ways of raising funds to keep funding the MMA Fight Council. And I commend you for that, because you believe in what you're doing, and you're doing what you need to do to keep making it happen. And I think that's fantastic. And I think you're a great guy. I just wanted to throw that in there, because you're not saying it. I'm going to say it.
Thank you, Lou. And the same can be said for you as well.
Nothing
can be said about me. What are you kidding me? Nothing can be said about me. Nothing can be said about me.
What Aaron has done, which I like about the MMA Fight Council also, Aaron has taken it, and when he started setting his board up, I was very fortunate. He was one of the people he asked to be on. But he started asking not only just MMA people, he started asking a lot of traditional martial art people to get involved, because he saw the necessity to see where it all came from. And I think there's been a little bit of the magic, because he actually crossed over a lot of the lines that other people might have not wanted to cross. But like Dan said, he sees a lot of traditional stuff coming back into the MMA, and I think it's a great thing. I really do.
Well, it is, and if I may, I guess I would love to say publicly every chance I get that I couldn't be more grateful. Alan Goldberg, I believe, is probably our biggest supporter as one of our advisory board members, and makes a lot possible for us that wouldn't otherwise be. It is true that there is no mixed martial arts without martial arts. And while I will freely admit I am not a martial artist by no stretch of any definition, although I have an incredibly healthy respect for the martial arts, and we've trained just a little bit here and there, but I understand that you cannot have mixed martial arts without martial arts to mix, and it's just a fact. And so we've been very fortunate. I really am hoping this, as this year ends and the next year begins, to really sort of energize in a number of ways the synergy that I think exists with the advisory board members, or that can exist. There's some incredible, some real, just legendary martial artists, mixed martial artists that all seem to believe that the sport is worth making great efforts to grow and improve. So that's
right.
It's very exciting.
And
go ahead, Alan.
Go on. This year, just in the amazing factor that we have Louis Negri doing the ROC Ring of Combat this year, we have a lot of other celebrity martial artists coming to our trade show this year. And, I'll be giving a list very soon, but including who's going to be there already. Frank Shamrock is there, Dan Severn, Shawnee Carter, we have Ray Mercer there, and tons of kickboxing champions, so on and so forth. We're going to be bringing in a few more. Henzo Gracie's supposed to be coming. A couple of the other guys that fought on loose cards that have been around a long time are going to be coming to the Trade Show and Expo. So I think our event is actually going to be covered a lot more of the MMA than we ever did before. And hey, if that's what the audience wants, I'll be honest with you, my event is for everybody. It's not just one thing. So, we're opening the doors so everyone will be there and be part of what we do.
And that's it. And Aaron, we have a caller, Tom Getling from Long Island. He's on hold. He wants to talk to you.
Well, I would love to talk to him.
All right. Tom, welcome to the show.
Thank you, guys. Hello, Sifu Goldberg. Hello, Aaron.
You follow me around, Tom?
I'm following you around, Sifu.
How are you, buddy?
I'm great. My question really is piggybacking off of the conversations that's happened all night with Dan Severn, and then, of course, Aaron. He mentioned, George St. Pierre. Both very, very respectful men. And my real question to you, Aaron, is do you believe that the traditional martial artists, because of the respect factor, is going to deteriorate because of sales? Because it always seems like the trash talker and the bad boys generate the money. Do you see that becoming a major factor in MMA in the future?
I hope not. And what I think, I appreciate that it's a fantastic question. There are lots of things, while I love MMA, there are lots of things about it that I'm not crazy about. And what I would say is that George St. Pierre, for instance, really the first MMA fighter to cross over mainstream as far as endorsements go, it has a lot to do with the fact that he's not a loudmouth fighter. He's a respectful martial artist who has dedicated his life to rounding out his game. He wrestles better than most Division I champion wrestlers, but he has no formal wrestling. But he works that hard with a lot of people to get there. And he goes to Brazil, and he goes to Henzo Gracie's school, and he does whatever he needs to do, and he works hard at the TriStar at his gym.
Excellent.
And he's the most respectful. You couldn't find someone more of a gentleman in or out of the ring. Honestly,
I'll give you one other guy that you bring something up that's like that also. I've had the pleasure of meeting quite a few times, is Randy Couture. He's a guy, probably one of the most deadliest guys you want to meet, and the guy's such a nice guy when you meet the guy. It kind of blows your mind,
Yeah, he's definitely humble, definitely.
Well,
Right.
When you look at that, Randy Couture, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is his nom de guerre is Captain America. That white bread, flag waving, and truly, he's the epitome of it.
Yes.
But do you feel how that the MMA world is going to continue to follow them, or will we go the way of professional wrestling and boxing?
Well, here's what I think that the difficulty with that, and the reason that that's even an issue, is it is because of the business model. It's because of looking to reach the masses as opposed to the bulk of the fans that have existed for the last 18 or so years. And to grow the market, I don't think they're going to abandon what really matters or works, but I do think there's going to be that fringe element of, sure, somebody who can talk a good game. Well, let's face it. We have somebody right now that we and I'm not saying he's a bad fighter, by the way, but Chael Sonnen, he's gotten himself more fights by talking than anybody. And they're title fights. And so it does, I guess there is that element, Tom, that's always going to be there. I hope it doesn't become all-encompassing. I hope it doesn't become a circus, because I think that's a disservice to the fighters.
Well, all I want to say is I hope that, like Dan Severn, like George St. Pierre, like Sifu Allen, and like yourself, Aaron, that the respectful guys run the show, and that they'll make decisions on that and maybe even curb some behavior so that it doesn't turn into, the bad blood and trash talking that the other sports have become.
Right.
Well, can I interject something there? If my good friend Tom keeps doing what he's doing up in Warrior Camp, we're going to have traditional martial artists around for a long time, Tom. So you just keep up what you're doing also, and we're going to keep that traditional martial arts right out there in people's faces also.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Tom,
yep.
Before you leave, Tom, just want to let everybody know, when I had Tom in the green room, I asked him, what's your name? He gave me his name, and he told me where he was from. I said, okay, you're a martial artist? He said, yes. I said, okay, what's your title? Master, this, that? He said, no, it's just Tom. Okay, if more people had that demeanor, that attitude, I think the world of martial arts would definitely be a better place to be in.
Thanks so much for the opportunity, guys. I love the show. It's a great show.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks. I'm a big supporter of what we've done, and just you calling in makes me feel, hey, we got people out there listening that care.
Oh, we're listening all the time.
All right, my friend. Thanks. God bless.
I will say, I would like to just end that discussion with this, that one of the things that I love and I point out to people that are new to MMA is, look, watch these guys. They look like they're going to kill each other, but when they're done, for the most part, most of them will hug each other, will hold each other's hands up. That's really the essence of the sport. They're warriors who, this is what they're good at. They make a living. They have families they support, and they don't hate each other. They respect each other. And when it's all done, they hug, not because they have to, they just want to, and they respect each other. And, hey, the better man won tonight, and we move on.
Well, I agree 100% with that. I see a lot of good things happening. And, again, you do have the bad apples out there, but listen, they'll get weeded out one way or another anyway.
Yes.
So, well, I do have to say that this has been a great show, having Dan on and my two co-hosts, the MMA guy here now, and everything we're doing. I think we're getting bigger audiences all the time. So, hey, guys, we're doing the right thing for the martial art world. There's some other great shows there. Alan Woodman has another show kind of like we're doing, a little different, though, and I love what he's doing with it. And, as a matter of fact, I'm doing a show on Wednesday night with another group under Moses Powell and some people that are doing the martial art talk shows. And you know something? I think this is the way to keep the traditional guys around and keep them alive and let them know that there's a ton of us out there, guys. There's a lot of us out there.
Oh, and I think that having these outlets is giving the next generation the opportunity to hear this.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's fantastic. But you know what, Alan? At the end of the day, no one has a better show than you do. So there you go.
Well, I keep trying.
Let me just get cocky there for a second.
Okay, so now can I make my official apology point? Gentlemen, I wanted to apologize for not being here last week. I was kicking myself. I felt like Wile E. Coyote at the Acme butt kicking machine with the old, toilet pull chain with the 2x4s and a combat boot kicking me in the backside, because I was the one who actually asked Sifu Goldberg if he would bring in his instructor.
Yes, you did.
And sure enough, something came up, and I wasn't able to make it. I'm going, great. This is just wonderful. But I will make a point of being here. I really enjoy being part of this. It's an opportunity to speak to a lot of individuals who I have not had the opportunity to speak to, and I hope that you enjoy the questions that I ask, and I hope it educates our viewers. And I'll be striving to be Wikipedia Joe.
We got a good mix with everybody, and I think everyone enjoys each other's input. So, onward and forward, gentlemen. It's been a great show.
And Joe, last week, when we had Jason Lau on, that was one of the most listened to power hours that we've had.
Wow.
So that was, so, you missed the boat on that one, buddy, but that's okay.
Well,
you know
what? I'm going to be listening to the rebroadcast, really looking forward to it. And I had a bunch of questions because I've been following his career since the 70s, and we were talking about that, the old Action Black Belt magazine and Masters of Self-Defense and all those early magazines out of the New York area, and he was one of the people that was involved in them,
Well,
and,
Lou, I didn't tell you. We made all our students listen in. That's what it was. That's what
there you go. Yeah, they had no choice from coast to coast.
We threatened them all.
There you go.
I just want to make one last comment before we close. Again, I'm sure it was mentioned last week, and I know that Sifu Goldberg was very honored at again the events regarding the passing of Grandmaster Ronald Duncan from the Way of the Wind system, and. Yes. If you read his comments on Facebook, and how humbled and honored he was to be asked up with one of his Sensei Duncan's oldest students, and I actually have an old interview that hasn't seen the light of day from Storm King from a couple of years back that I will be putting on YouTube to as an honor to him, and he will be missed.
Definitely. I mean, I did speak to some of the two sons, and I told them the Action Martial Art magazine were behind them 100% because we know what happens when someone passes. Everyone wants to claim all these things, and we just want to be behind them because Master Duncan and I, we had a special relationship, such as other private people did. And I always tell people it's funny because when people would see him around, even when we were around the public, he was very stern and straight, and people didn't think he knew how to laugh. And when he would call me on the phone, he would call me on the phone. I didn't know it was him. I thought it was someone else. He was a completely different person. And I appreciated that so much that, when his eldest students, it was 4 of his eldest students, Felix Vasquez and Noriega, they had actually asked me to come up with them. And I left it. I didn't feel like I belonged there because I wasn't his student. But I was honored enough, and, that gave me more of an understanding that I just want to, support the family and make sure that, they're not pushed around at this point by everyone making these crazy claims as things do happen when someone does pass away. So I was very honored. So, Max, gentlemen, I thank you for being here. We got a lot more to do and a lot more to say to people, and thanks.
All right, before we close out, Aaron, give the website again.
It is MMA Fight Council, which is COUNCIL.com.
Okay, you have MMAFightCouncil.com. And as all our listeners know of the Power Hour, go to ActionMaxStory.com. Find out more about the Action Martial Arts Hall of Honors that's happening January 25th and 26th of 2013 at the Tropicana Hotel and Casino. It's going to be an awesome time. Starts Friday. You have the Wine and Cheese event. You got Louis Neglia's, Ring of Honor. I mean, was it Ring of Combat, right?
Ring of Combat, right?
Ring of Combat, and then you have the one of the largest trade shows at the Tropicana that happens on Saturday, and then you have the Black Tie Affair, which everyone loves to go to Saturday night. So if you miss it, you're going to be missing one heck of an event, and in my opinion, I think it's going to trump all the other previous years, Alan.
You're Master God's years. I keep working either way.
Yeah. The hardest working man in the world of martial arts. Okay, does anyone have anything to say in closing?
Just thank you guys for being on. That's all I want to say.
Okay,
and
thank you, everyone.
Week.
Yeah, next week, next Tuesday, 7 o'clock Eastern Time. And who's the guest next week, Alan? So we can let our listeners know.
World champion Jeff Smith, one of the 3 guys that made the special team between Joe Louis, Jeff Smith, and Bill Wallace. They were the dream team. So we definitely have them coming on. And I know we're talking a lot about Joe Louis that week because they were very close also. So it's going to be a good show also. So guys, prepare yourself, be ready because Jeff's a talker too. So we're going to have a good guest on also.
Oh, we'll have another great show. All right, guys. Thank you so much. Everyone have a great week, and we'll be back with you on next Tuesday.
Audience, say it with me. Legendary. It's going to be 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 legendary.
the ultimate martial art experience, Action Martial Arts Magazine Hall of Fame, January 25th and 26th this year. Don't miss it. Bigger and better than ever. More stars, more people, bigger rooms. We're expanding everything. Friday night parties, seminars, so be there. You need to call me, 718-856-8070, and I'll tell you more.
You're listening to UCW Radio, in your face.
If you try to remember, you will lose. Empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water.
All the fighters that ever set foot on this planet. I'm the only world champion, United States national champion. I'm a two-time national kata champion. I was never beaten in kata. Be proud of it.
The Action Martial Arts Power